Just like hot toddies and hot takes, justice is best served on a hot plate. Welcome to Brunch and Budget, the show about racial economic inclusion and personal finance with your host, Pamela Capallet, a certified financial planner and accredited financial counselor here to take the bite out of your budget. Brunch and Budget is part of the Race and Wealth Network. I am your sound provider, Dialect, and here is your host, Pamela Capallet.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? It's such a nice day today, isn't it?
You know, with the intro, I said about hot toddies and hot takes because no. I have a real reason. Because
what is it?
we're doing a thing.
Oh.
About drink, because hot toddies are an alcohol.
Oh, we are doing a thing.
Yeah, say the thing we're doing.
Hopefully Globe Gang shows up in a little bit. But on Saturday, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we are doing a workshop on cocktails and credit. And we're going to be doing a
we're calling it cocktails and credit. It's not a workshop on cocktails and credit. We're not going to teach you how to make cocktails. We don't really know how to make cocktails. Peace, what's going on? We're not like cocktail experts, but we are going to make cocktails and talk about credit while folks make cocktails and talk about credit. It's kind of like a drinking game about credit.
Yes, exactly. A drinking game about credit.
But not like a full-out drinking game of credit, because if you really did a full-out drinking game about credit, we'd probably all die.
Yeah. We'd be really drunk at least.
Alcohol's dangerous, y'all.
It's true. But today, on our
Speaking
podcast,
of dangerous things that we're going to be talking about.
Oh, man. We're going to be talking about credit and debt strategies for you and your significant other. For you and your honey.
Yeah, relationship stuff and money stuff are always the tough thing.
So fun.
I mean, this is the whole thing of what Brunch and Budget does, right?
Yeah.
We talk about money and we talk about the practical tips and the strategies and all that, but none of that really matters unless we examine our relationships with money. What are the things that are important to us? What are the things that we're trying to do? And then that compounds whenever we talk about our other relationships. And when it comes to our dating relationships that are supposed to be the realest, right? I'm seeing, Sam, peace with all the hearts, right? The realest stuff, is the toughest stuff. Oh my
God, especially with someone you love.
We're talking, well, it's tough to talk about anything with somebody you love.
Yeah.
But then talking about serious stuff, things like money, debt,
and things
taxes,
that we're already ashamed of, right? We don't talk about it with anyone. Hey, what's up, building bread?
Yeah, building bread in the house. What's going on? I know you know about this.
Oh, yeah.
So let's get into it. We have a lot of questions that have been asked. Again, the format of what's been going on with these live podcasts we've been doing is that we've been getting a lot of questions. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. But we also have some that people have been asking during the week.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a bunch of those questions. And I just want to share this stat, first of all, that we read recently.
Oh, stats. More than
2/3 of engaged couples have negative attitudes about discussing money with their soon-to-be spouse, with 5%, 1 out of 20 couples, saying that even having the conversation would cause them to call off their wedding.
That's without even talking to their partner.
No.
I want to hope that actually, if they did talk to their partner, you would find out it was less than that.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, maybe that's why, because they didn't talk to their partner. They're like, I don't know, I can't do it. I've had many clients tell me that the only thing they fight about is money. Mm-hmm. They talk about everything else. They can talk about anything else under the sun, but it's the only thing they talk about. Only thing that they fight about is money. So we wanted to start with a question from a follower, and she asked, what strategies do you suggest for getting on the same page about money? Where do we start? And I thought that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, where do we start? That's the hard thing. Like, all the stuff that you're talking about is very typical in all types of relationships. But when it comes to a dating person, like, talking to your parents about money, you already have a relationship with your parents about money. Your cousins about money. Even your friends about money. But your relationship, when it comes to dating, there's first of all the norms that go into it and all this kind of stuff, and you're ending up where you're at. So to talk about where we start is like everything in relationships. We find the thing that is the easiest. Like, we have prescriptive stuff about, be vulnerable, talk first, and all this. But the real for real of it, when it comes to your relationship and you starting out with things, is find an easy part. Everyone always likes to tell you about finding a way to sneak it in, and the reason that people give this advice is because it's adjacent to the right thing. It's not that we want to sneak things in or trick things about our partner, but we want to build habits, and habits are built through repetition of difficult things that start as easy as possible. When you start doing a workout, you don't lift the biggest weight. You lift the weight that you can as many times as you can, and then you build up.
Like, don't ask your partner to show you all of their credit card statements at first.
Well, this is the big thing. Also, don't do the big, huge, high-level thing.
Yeah.
The way that I recommend, and something that I think that we've done as partners, we're partners in case you don't know, we have the baby and all this stuff. we talk about our values, our big values, without judgment. I will say, hey, Pam, this is stuff that's important to me. I care about the racial wealth divide and making sure that black people, indigenous people, and people of color in general are treated fairly and are given the same type of rights as other folks.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And then we can have a conversation about that. And I'll say, I agree with that dialect.
Or you can have your own things that you say and you feel. And then after that, find a small thing. One small thing that you can have a regular conversation about.
Well, I have a question for you, actually.
Go ahead. Go with your question.
So, it's a first date. Who pays?
Oh.
Speaking, money comes up right away, y'all. Who pays?
So, who pays? I don't want to put my feelings about those kind of stuff because, well, no, actually, I'll put mine.
Put your feelings out there, yeah.
I like to pay on a first date, but I had this thing that I said many years ago when I was a kid, and I still kind of hold on to it. Like, I like to pay on a first date, but I like for my partner to offer.
Oh.
But
I did that.
Having that being said, that's a very juvenile way to look at it. I think what's really important about who pays is the conversation beforehand.
Ooh, wait, so do you bring up money on the first date? What do you mean about the conversation beforehand?
So if I'm asking you out, I think, and this is a part that we're saying about being vulnerable first.
Yeah.
If I'm asking you out, I'm going to let you know that I intend on paying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that other people are like, oh, this is the prescribed method. But since I know that I want to pay on the first date, I want to let you know that I intend on paying on the first date. If you have an issue with that, you can let me know right away before we even start.
Right.
We can have that conversation. The thing about the awkwardness of it is getting the awkwardness out of the way first. I'm real, glow up gangs in the house. I am not about that whole on your first date you're doing an audition so you're acting like not yourself.
There's no point for that.
We ain't got time for that.
We
Ain't
don't have
nobody
any
got time for that.
that.
Bang a pot in the side of your head to wake you up. Listen, being yourself on the first date means talking about the things that really matter.
And that mattered to you.
And it's something that mattered to me.
Yeah.
If you don't care and it's something that doesn't matter, feel free to mention that too.
Yeah, and if you're fine, just seeing what happens. Totally. Okay, so money comes up right away. So then in terms of the strategies, let's get specific about it.
By the way, I want to shout out Leslie. That's for real. Every decision is easier to make when you bring it back to values. Yeah.
Always.
What's important to you about because we're not just trying out for these partners.
Yeah,
we want to share what's important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the conversation can become easier because talking about your values is a very vulnerable conversation to begin with, right? It's one of those things where there's the risk that you find out that your partner doesn't have the same values as you. And then does the money conversation even need to happen? When you don't know what your partner's values are, or when you assume what they are, then that's where all of these assumptions around money and what you should be spending your money on or saving your money on or things like that also end up happening. So you want to be really open about your values because that leads into deeper conversations about money. And then honestly, all of the administrative stuff, all of the back and forth stuff gets a lot easier. It's still not going to be totally easy, but it gets a lot easier.
You know what's funny is I think a lot of people are already doing this a little subconsciously or unconsciously.
Yeah.
When you look at, we've made the little gif about the lady who had the credit score requirement on her Tinder, and I think what she wanted and what a lot of people in those situations they want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
They don't have the language for it. We're not prepared for it. We're not socialized to it. But these are the things that we do know. Gotta have a J-O-B.
Right. Is that the new version? Is the credit score?
No, that's what I was thinking. It's ain't nothing going on but the rent.
Yep.
And if that's the paradigm through which we have these kinds of conversations, that's what people are going to say up front.
Yeah.
And that's why people are getting upset because, it's not exactly what people are dealing with values, but it is a direct statement that allows you to make a judgment before you start doing the dating thing.
Right. And it's absolutely clear, right? This credit score feels like a tangible thing that someone can hold on to. So the thing to think about when it comes to being vulnerable first is you're going to potentially be asking your partner to share about their past mistakes, and that means debt. That means mistakes they made around money. And so you need to also prepare yourself to be able to share about your past mistakes or things that you feel like are mistakes. When it comes to you wanting to be the one to have the conversation, you have to volunteer the information first, and you cannot have any expectations that your partner is going to be willing to volunteer that same thing at the same time.
Yeah, to be clear about it, if you want information about a certain subject to be shared, volunteer it first without expectation.
Yep, that's huge.
I know that sucks because you're like, oh, what's going to happen? But that's what we have to find out.
I will say for new couples too, one thing that I found that is really helpful to do that's fun and low stakes is planning your first vacation together. You are going to have to split expenses. You are going to talk about costs. And a lot of values conversations come out of planning a vacation, right? Where you want to go, what kind of place you want to stay in, what kind of flights you want to have, what kind of things you want to do, what kind of things you want to eat, what kind of things you want to actually place value on. Because you saying I want to spend money on a nice hotel means that's the kind of thing that you value. And so you're able to open up a conversation in a really fun way. And it keeps it low stakes because you're not like joining your finances after the third date. You're saying, hey, we want to go on a weekend together. Let's figure out how to split the cost, right?
I think that's a great idea. Also, to complicate things, I want to flip it around and ask you.
As always.
Well, because, we haven't had anyone in the comments ask this, but I want to know, well, what about now? What about right now? If we haven't talked about finances...
Yeah.
And, we can't plan a vacation right now. That's just not really the move.
You're right.
What's something that we can do to share these things?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you're not living with the person that you're dating, then it may be a moot point, right? It may be a moot point in terms of what the practical stuff is, but it could be a really good time, even if you're like Zoom calling somebody or FaceTiming someone, to start figuring out if it's about to get serious, like what kinds of things you want to ask them and what kinds of things you want to share with them. I think that when it comes to starting that first conversation, it's about what am I willing to share? What am I ready to share? And what kinds of things do I want to, in a sense, like get off my chest, right? Don't think of it as like you're trying to find information from the other person, but like, we are thinking about money all the time. It's something that stresses all of us out. And to think about it in the context of a partner and figuring out how you want to actually interact with them about it, I think it's a really good way to figure out, like, what do you want to tell them? What do you want them to know about you?
I really dig this.
Yeah.
One thing I always like to say about your partner in a dating relationship is they handle your ego. You keep your ego on the low in your daily life, your work life, and a lot of that stuff. But when you come home to your partner, you want them to be able to understand your ego. Yep. And I think even if you're not living together yet and you're just working this stuff out, again, the no judgment stuff, if we can kind of be each other's counselor. Ask like, what is something that you have a problem with? What is something that you care about? What is something that matters to you? And I just want to listen to you. Yeah. Share how you feel. Yeah, and then the other person can share something that they feel, and they don't even have to be related. They can be asynchronous things. They don't even have to happen at the same time. It doesn't have to be I'm going to do you and you do me type of thing. Yeah. We can, relationship stuff. Share however you share. But the point of it is I want to listen to you. Yeah. And I want to give you space to just speak these things out. Right. I think if you're really at a zero place and right now, and everyone's, saying all the stuff that they really feel right now anyway. For real. Let's go with that.
For real. Yeah, I mean, I feel like now more than ever, it's a really great time to start thinking about having these conversations. And if you're in a place where, I think the next tough thing is you're in a serious relationship, maybe you're married, maybe you're about to get married, maybe you've just moved in together, whatever it is, and you haven't talked about it, how do you start? It feels like you're too far already, right? You're beyond the like, oh, we're planning our first vacation. Oh, we're like doing Zoom calls back and forth, whatever it is. Like how do you start a conversation that feels like you've already thought about it? Yeah. It feels like it's already difficult to start it. How do you go backwards?
So the reason it's difficult is because you're breaking routine. It's not even, I don't even think it's about going backwards. I'm not into the whole going backwards, starting over kind of thing, because we're just moving forward. We continue to have the stuff with whether we consider it baggage or memories. Yeah. And I don't think that we need to go backwards in it. When we break the cycles of where we've been, there's going to be anger, there's going to be confusion, there's going to be problems. Yeah. And we're going to have to talk that part out. And when it comes to breaking these cycles, it's about making sure that we understand we're not it's not that I don't appreciate what's been going on. Yeah. It's not that I don't love you and the situations and what's happening. It's that I want to question and examine. And we question and examine all the things that we're doing in relationships on a periodical basis.
Do you remember the first time we talked about money?
What you gonna bring up? Go ahead.
No, I don't remember. We've been together for 12 years, y'all. I was like, how did we bring it up the first time? I know we went on a vacation together early.
That's what I was going to say.
That was a big one. When did I tell you my credit score? I don't even remember.
I don't know credit score, but let's talk about the vacation thing. So I do remember, peace out, what's going on, y'all? I do remember when we first went on vacation together.
Yes.
We went and traveled.
We went to California.
Yeah. It was a really nice trip, and we talked about money kind of minimally. What happened was we talked about things on a case-to-case basis. Yeah. And it was a thing where we started off very cautious. I remember at the beginning of the trip being like, always just reaching for my wallet and pulling out because I think
we both
I need
were.
to. Yeah, and it was a little bit on your
Or
end.
I was like trying to take care of all the like online payments, like booking the hotels and stuff.
And what happened was, we were talking about that and trying to figure out how it went. And I think it was me who said it, but I don't think it matters who says it. I said, I'm going to pay for this thing. And then you can pay for that other thing, and then I got this. And I'm pretty sure that I angled it so that I was paying a little bit more. But it was enough that it was negligible because you could see we'd been back and forth about it. And that was our first foray into being able to talk about money.
Yeah.
We continued on that for probably a long time.
Yeah.
Before we sat down and had a discussion about how we had been back and forth about things.
Right. And like, it wasn't even that we were like, we're ready to join finances, but I know I was in wealth management and I think I was curious about your credit score or something. I don't remember how that came up, but I was just like, I wonder what it is. And I hadn't checked mine in a while, so I was like, I wonder what mine is. And I think that we started kind of having that conversation from there too.
Yeah, well, see, that was after we'd already developed a lot of
trust. This was like 2 years into the relationship.
Well, and the thing of it is we started having those small conversations about money, which led to the bigger conversations about money. And this is the thing I think is really important.
That's what you said about habits.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that there needs to be both, and this also comes from, if you guys are teachers or project managers, you know about the micro and the macro. Looking at and examining the heck out of one small moment and then reflecting on how that matters in terms of your values, the big things that are important to you. Like in corporate places, it's easy to look at like there's just like a values chart. It's like, this is what...
Right. It's like core values, live by them,
right,
whatever.
and all that stuff. And it's more nebulous when it's you, and then it becomes more nebulous when you start feeling like it's us. Because when do my values become our values?
That's the thing to keep in mind when it comes to values is... You're each still going to have your own individual values, but now you're going to have values as a couple that are a merging of the two. We still have each of our own values, but now we also have values as a family and values as a couple that are different potentially than the values that we also each hold on our own. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing to really, it's not a negotiation thing, but an understanding thing of that you're creating something new. You're creating something new out of this. And I think that's a really good point, actually. I just keep thinking and going back to the habits of how every time money did come up, even the little things about money, we did stop and talk about it, even if it was brief. And so by the time I got to the point where I was like, I wonder what his credit score is. I wonder what my credit score is. What does that even mean? Then it wasn't that difficult to bring it up.
Yeah, I want to go to a song in a second, but I want to mention when you started bringing up the stuff about credit scores, again, no tricks, no traps. You genuinely asked, hey, what's your credit score? I need to check mine because I don't know my credit score.
Yeah.
Do not try to set up some trick or gotcha moment with your partner where you're like, I already know my credit score and I know where I'm at and I know that you don't have your credit together. So let's how about those credit scores?
Slide credit score arm.
None of that is going to work. Again, tie these individual actions to your big values. If you can frame them, if you are a revolutionary type person, if you can frame them and being like, hey, understanding our credit scores, it's not a judgment on you as a person. Nope. It's not going to matter to me as far as dating you, but it is going to let us know what type of institutions we can roll with so we can do the revolutionary stuff that we want to do.
That's right.
That's one that works.
I love it. So what's the song you got?
So we're going to go into a song. I want to go to the UK. It's actually a combo. It's an Irish singer-songwriter and a Venezuelan DJ. They combine to form a group called Angels, and they got a song called Communicate. Oh. And we're going to answer some more questions as we play the joint about communicating.
Do you think they're a couple? That's cute.
I don't know.
I like that. All right. Oh, this song is hot also, by the way. So if you want to check it out, listen to the podcast. We'll also be putting it in the show notes. So I have a great question here.
We play all indie music. If you have indie music about money or about the situations that are about money, please send it to us.
Yes. So my husband and I are looking to buy a house in the next 2 to 3 years. We've opened a money market account and contribute $750 a month. However, I'm wondering if you could provide advice for first-time homeowners. It would be great to have an action-oriented timeline, what we should be aware of. I have no idea of the process, and some of our friends are on their second or third house. Word!
Yes, this is a really good question.
This is an excellent question. So first of all, when it comes to buying a house, that is a huge financial commitment. Also, dialect We bought a house.
Yeah, we bought a house
before we got married.
Because
that's the real financial commitment, y'all.
Well, honestly, because talking about conversations and communications, we had discussions about marriage, and we shared the values that, like, marriage is a real institution, but we didn't think it was as a determinant of our commitment.
Yeah.
We talked about what would be a real commitment. At the same time, you were considering buying a house.
Right, and then at some point it just made sense for us to be talking about buying a house together before it actually made sense for us to get married.
Well, and I'll talk about the money of it.
Yeah.
So we both were living in good situations with
I was paying
roommates.
$400 a month for rent.
And I was paying similar. And we were like, well, I don't want us to take these, like, roughly $800 that we're paying in rent and turn it into an $1,800 place.
Which is what would have happened.
But we were ready to start moving in with each other and not have all the many roommates that we had.
Yeah.
So then it became a thing, well, if we're going to get a place and we're going to do that monetarily, well, then we should
In
buy
New
a
York.
place. Yeah, in New York. In New York.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, well, then we should buy a place.
Yeah.
And then what does that
Lisa,
mean?
we're unicorns. It's true.
We're both unicorns.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
What does that mean? Yeah, exactly. And I think we were debating between the cost of a wedding versus the cost of a down payment on a house. Really was what it was ultimately.
Weddings cost like 20 G's.
So is a down payment on a house.
Like a boring wedding.
And we were so
costs
afraid.
20
yeah,
G's.
we were afraid to get pushed out of the neighborhood. So we just made that decision. And we did get married eventually. But I will say, buying a house together does open up a lot of money conversations. You definitely learn your partner's credit then. You see their bank statements. You see what their income is. You look at their tax returns. All of this stuff comes up in the course of this conversation.
You're gonna have to know about debt. Probably the biggest problem I've heard people talk about in their relationships, the thing that they have a barrier and don't want to share, is debt.
Yeah.
Often those come from bad situations. They often come from other relationships.
Yep.
You know, I used to date this person and we all this time and now I got the...
past baggage. No, it's real. Well, and then just to go back to this question, there's two ways that I want to address this. There's the practical stuff that you have to get ready for, and there's the psychological stuff that you have to get ready for, right? So the practical stuff is, if your timeline is 2 to 3 years away, that's great, because that gives you a lot of time to actually get your credit scores together. So to start paying down some debt, to start figuring out how to increase your credit scores, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, like to help each other with your credit scores by, being authorized users on each other's accounts, by opening joint accounts together, whatever makes sense. But because your time horizon is 2 to 3 years from now, that does give you plenty of time to increase your credit. If your time horizon was less than a year from now, your credit kind of just is what it is. But because you have 2 to 3 years of planning in place, you are able to actually together work on building up each other's credit. Because when you are getting ready to buy a house, most mortgage lenders want to see at least a credit score of 720 to get the best rates. Usually they want to see at least a credit score of 680 to even consider you for a mortgage at that point. So you want to get to the point where your credit scores are climbing above 700, and the best rates, the highest credit score you really need, what we've seen on average is around 760. They did a study on that your credit score needs to be around 760 and you'll qualify for anything.
And on the time horizon tip, when you're in a new relationship, generally, I don't think time horizons need to be brought up unless you're in a situation where time horizons need to be brought up. In that case, then bring up time horizons on the first date. But when we were talking about earlier, if you're already in a relationship and things have been rolling and you've already got some thoughts and feelings, maybe you've had discussions about the future. And as soon as you start having discussions about the future, start discussing what a time horizon looks like and means to you.
What's your timeline for buying a house? What's your timeline for starting a family? What's your timeline for paying off your debt?
Start it when you're in relationship, but it's already vague enough that you can adjust it.
Yeah, exactly. So I love, too, that you guys are saving jointly together. That's one of the main suggestions that I have if a couple is thinking about making a huge purchase, or if they're in the process of joining their finances, is the first step, and one of the easiest steps, is just have a joint savings account together. Start it at zero, and each decide how much you're planning to contribute every single month. And then that way you have a really clear idea of, okay, this is what we're working towards our joint goal. So again, going back to what we were saying about how you each have your own individual values, but you also now have values as a couple. This is a great, tangible way to actually be able to actually see those values going up together. So on the psychological side, when it comes to figuring out how to buy a house and deciding whether to buy a house together, so because you're going to be kind of unraveling all of these things, and buying a house is a long-term process, it's also time to really start having a way to talk about money regularly. whether it is money meetings, if that's how your couplehood works, whether it's about showing each other how you pay your bills or what your bills are. It's time to really start getting used to sharing all of these things with each other on at least a conversational level, if you're not doing it on an administrative or physical level of actually joining your accounts.
Yeah, and the conversational rather than administrative, I also want it to be in the way that we speak to each other. Mm-hmm. So for people of color, specifically for black families, there's a lot of pressure on our backs to make generational wealth happen.
Yeah.
'Cause we didn't have it, we didn't have access to it, and now maybe if we've got some kind of bag, we want to figure out how to get it together.
Yep.
And a thing that I think is really important for us to start talking about when we talk about generational wealth and what we want to build as a couple is how we feel about it.
Oh.
Because, like I said in my opening, it's a lot of pressure.
Right.
This thing about generational wealth is like no one else has been able to do it, and now I have this possibility that I could do it, or maybe I could do what everyone else has done, or maybe other things are going to come in, and there's a lot.
And do you mean like make sure that you're both working towards generational wealth, make sure that you're on the same page about what that means?
Well, I want to get on the same page about what that means. I think it's perfectly fine if you don't have an opinion on it yet, if you don't know where you're at yet, or if you're conflicted. And I think it's really important because when you get into early relationship things and you start building and dealing with these aspirational things, especially dealing with community, you want to say the best thing that makes you right and makes you the one who's going to do it all and be the leader.
Well, because your values are on the line in this way too, right? And I think that's
reputation.
Oh my God, all of it. And also, what will my partner think of me, right? All of that stuff is wrapped up into this.
And I don't know about you, but I don't care about you. I care about her. And no, in terms of like what I want people to think of me. Like y'all, I mean, like think nice of me. I'm okay. No, but no, y'all can think any way you want. But it really is so heightened in terms of what my partner is, and it takes a lot to be honest about the things we're afraid of, the things we're confused about, and the things that we just aren't ready to do.
Right. And especially when it comes to buying a home and purchasing property, generational wealth is, whether or not the conversation comes up, it is something that you're either thinking of that house as or not. Right? There are a lot of people who are like, I'm going to buy a house because I think it's a good investment, and that's the thing that I was told to do, and that's the thing that I should do. And there are a lot of people who think, hey, me buying a home is me putting down roots. I want to be able to pass this on to our children, to other family members, whatever that means. Home ownership is one of the number one ways that families have been able to build generational wealth and been able to pass down wealth to generations after them. And so buying a home has a lot of these other conversations that need to happen, like you said, especially for families of color. Period. All right, so
let's get into
that question covered a lot. Thank you for that.
Really appreciate that. And I want to bring this to a what if that we have.
Yes.
So what if your partner doesn't want to talk about money?
Yeah.
What if it's that thing that you fight about, the only thing that you fight about?
And what if your partner just refuses no matter what you do? What do you do, Dialect?
DTMFA, right? Isn't that what's his name said? No, come on.
Do that.
Don't do all that.
Don't do that.
Dan Savage, that's the guy's name.
No, it's, I will say that money has a lot of trauma around it potentially for someone. It has a lot of family trauma, a lot of personal trauma, and there's a lot of shame and embarrassment around talking about money in general. It's the last taboo. I mean, parents are afraid to talk to their kids about money.
Well, it's sort of how like race isn't real, but racism is. Money is a thing that doesn't have a positive or negative thing to it, but our relationships with money have.
Yes.
And what's tough, and like a thing that's really hard in the conversations we have with our partner, is we could have the same situation, grew up in the same type of area, but our reaction was different.
Oh, yeah.
And then if one person's reaction is deemed as more positive by society, you went and hustled and became a big thing.
Yeah, you're
and
seen
I
as a
shrank
financial
away,
success, right?
while the other one
means.
is seen as a failure and you don't want to share.
Right.
So, I mean, there's probably a lot of insecurity and stuff that goes behind that.
Yeah,
in terms of why you don't want to talk about it and why you're afraid. That being said, we still need to get there, right?
Yeah, we absolutely still need to get there. And I think it may be helpful to start with understanding what your relationship with money is and what your partner's relationship with money is. And you don't have to make them take this quiz, but it could be fun. We always talk about money personalities on this show. Always, always, always. And we actually did an entire episode on you and your honey's money personality. It's episode 143.
She says honey because it rhymes with money, not necessarily because that's her.
I know. I don't call you honey. That's true. But yeah, you and your partner's money personalities.
You're the rhymer in the relationship? Man, sharing values,
I'm learning. So on episode 143, we actually go through every possible money personality combination, but we found that it's very helpful for couples to know what their money personality is and what their partner's money personality is, because that way you have an idea of how to approach the conversation with them. So just to give you an example, I'm a complicator. I am someone who has all the spreadsheets. I have spreadsheets from my spreadsheets. I triple check that all the bills are paid. It took me forever to get on auto pay because I was like, no way am I going to let a bank take money out of my account. And I can talk about money all day long, straight up. I can talk about money all day long, and all the minutia of it and every little single detail, I'll talk about it all day long.
I am a money monk, and saying the word money in I am a money monk, the sentence satisfies my daily requirement of talking about my money.
It's as far as he wants to go.
Yeah.
It's true. So imagine when I need to bring up, oh wow, Glow Up Gang Union.
Wow,
both
paper chasers.
Dang. Okay.
Well,
Listen to the episode and tell us what you think.
But no, it's really fun because you and I are diametric opposites.
Yes, we're total opposites on the matrix.
On the chart,
yeah.
And it's one of those things people saying about opposites attract, and then we hold each other down, and that is often the case. We see many couples that have opposite money personalities. Right. We also see many couples that are the same money personality.
Yep.
And it's a similar situation, but what I really like about it is the metaphor is different. As a money monk, I need to know about the social good. That's the reason that you will get me to open up a spreadsheet.
Right.
I need to know about the social good, and then if I want to share with you a social good, I need to have the receipts. Yeah. When you guys are both the same money personality, say that you guys both being paper chasers, you guys are interested in the next thing and building the next thing.
Yeah.
The metaphor is not about finding the difference, it's about finding the methodology in which you do your thing.
Yeah.
So as both paper chasers, what do you think about a contract that is on the table? And what do you think about a check that is in the mail? What do you think about a prospecting call?
Yeah, what are your individual processes that you've developed as paper chasers? Because there are a whole different kind of paper chaser situations that can go on, and it's a matter of figuring out where the symmetry is and also figuring out how you hold each other down, both as paper chasers.
And thank you, Leslie. The test can be found at brunchandbudget.com/personality.
Yes, so you and your partner can take that test, and it goes through a whole breakdown, and then episode 143 goes through the combo of every single money personality for the couples. So yeah, that is often a really good and fun place to start. That's where I start with all of my couple clients, is to figure out what your money personalities are and to figure out how they work in relation with each other. Because then you're able to talk about it in a way where you're like, oh, I understand that my husband as a money monk can only talk about money for 45 minutes max. And then after that, it's over. I have to stop. Because he can't do it anymore.
You know this about your partner in several different ways. If they need to go home, your partner usually, right, you have that look of like, oh, yeah, they're ready to go home.
I'm always ready to go home.
Across the room. No, but you have a look.
Yeah.
We'll be across the room. I'll see the look of like, okay, everybody got to wrap it on up. And we'll do that. And it's the same thing with our partners. It's like I was saying before about the ego. We look out for our partners in the social sense, and we need to look out for them in the financial sense as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's how we share our values, by the way. And that's why they don't always have to intersect.
Word. I love it. So I want to go into what it means in terms of credit and debt to be an authorized user on someone's account, to have joint loans together, and then what happens to your credit scores when you get married, because that's a pretty common thing that happens. So
I wanted to note that these are big steps. These
are
once you
steps.
guys have decided that, we're doing this for real and we would like to merge our finances in some kind of way, partially to either look out for each other or to build something new together.
Yeah, so if you're in a place where you or your partner need to build up their credit score and do it fairly quickly, there's a thing called an authorized user. We have an Instagram post about it. But basically what it means is you add your partner adds you as an authorized user on their credit card, and they're able to use your credit card, and they're also able to basically take on your credit history. So how it helps your partner is, one, they are not the primary holder on the account, so they don't get a ding for opening a new account. They haven't opened anything new. And also they get your credit history, they get all of your positive payment history, and they also get your credit limit on their thing. But the caveat is that with an authorized user, they are not responsible for paying down any of the debt. They're allowed to spend money on the card.
They can use it, but not, they're
an authorized user, not an authorized paybacker. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
if you're going to do that, that's not just a conversation about having, it's the conversation about what we're spending it on.
Yes, exactly. And usually an authorized user situation tends to make sense when, again, if one person in the couple doesn't have credit at all, maybe they're not from this country, maybe they haven't built their credit up yet, and you can put them on as an authorized user. And you as a primary cardholder can take anyone off as an authorized user anytime also. But you as an authorized user now are able to take all of this on. Now the thing is,
trust. Thank you, Lisa. Trust.
Yes, so much trust. Yeah,
it's a great Prince song.
Yeah, it is. An authorized user situation, also on a practical level, is often a really great way for couples to actually split their expenses. So, especially when you move in together and you start buying toilet paper together and groceries and you start sharing everything, sometimes it's this thing where you're like, oh, you got the groceries this time, I got the groceries this time, or oh, we have to like split up this meal that we just bought together, or split up this trip that we just bought together. If you put everything on basically this joint credit card, then you can decide at the end of the month how you want to split the credit card bill instead of trying to split every single transaction every single time you do it, or trying to track things or whatever. And so I've had plenty of clients who have done that, and they went from needing to meet books to not having to do that anymore.
Yeah, because it's an introduction to creating the same pot that you're going to be taking money out of.
Exactly.
While still maintaining your individuality.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's a really great first step, along with opening a joint savings account and starting poor connection.
We paused because of poor connection, but it's going to be all right.
You know the internet. Oh well. But
you know the internet.
Everyone's on it right now. Yeah, so when it comes to authorized user, that is a really good first step. And then the next thing is joint loans. So there are some people who, they don't put you on authorized user, but maybe you want to buy a car together. Mm-hmm. And this is also a really great way, especially if one partner has a better credit score than the other, to build up the other person's credit score, or to get them having a credit score for the first time. Buying a car together, personal loans, getting on a joint personal loan. Because the other thing is, when you have two people on a loan together, and one of them, first of all, they take into account both of your income, so that absolutely helps in terms of increasing the chance that you're going to have a good interest rate. But also, the one with a better credit score often helps lift up the other person who doesn't have as good of a credit score, and you're both able to grow your credit scores together. When it's a joint loan, you both get your credit score checked, so it's a ding on both of your credits, at least initially. Mm-hmm. And then after you keep making payments on time and all of that kind of stuff, then both of your credits actually improve. And by having auto loans together, personal loans together, it really allows you to get to the point where, like, now you're going to get on a mortgage together, and you've been building all of that up together as well.
Well, and now you're doing a thing together where there are consequences if you don't do the thing.
Yes.
Well, because before you got together, I know that there are a lot of people who would question the whole authorized user thing as well. I spent my life doing the right thing, and I got to this place, and mine is good, and they made mistakes, so why should I even...
Right. They can figure all that out themselves.
And if you are thinking that, then maybe they're not a partner to you.
That's fair.
Because when we get to the partner thing, well, no, I'm saying, like, you know, you may like them, you may love them, but I don't necessarily think that you see them as a partner. Mm-hmm. You may see them as an equal, and you may like a lot about them. But I think when you partner is when you start getting over that, is this fair? Because you stop thinking of it as me and you, and start thinking of it as us. And I know that feels like cliche and very kissing in the rain kind of stuff, but that's how we do.
Yes. Oh, we got a good question. Recommendation on best joint credit cards.
Excellent.
Great question. So, actually, as of now, there are no such thing as joint credit cards. So you can't actually own a credit card jointly where both of you are primary account holders and you're both responsible for paying it off. Right now, it's only one person can hold a credit card and the other person can become an authorized user. So there's a couple ways to think of this. One is you put your partner on as an authorized user on an existing card, which means it doesn't affect either of your credit scores. The other is that you or your partner open a new card, you get the ding on your credit, and then you put them as an authorized user on that new card. Often couples will do this when they're like, oh, I've been wanting the Chase Sapphire card, or I've been wanting the Amex Platinum card, or I've been eyeing the special card that now I can think of just for joint expenses, especially if you're using your other credit cards for other things. So it's not a matter of having a joint credit card so much as one person opening the card and the other person becoming an authorized user.
You know, I was thinking about, our paper chasery couple and thinking about ways to join things. And an idea I had about starting new stuff that might help separate and give you a little metaphor, it's a business. Or a venture. I would say venture because that has roots in adventure and feels like a fun thing rather than like a business and money thing. But it's like a business, and you should have a separate account and separate accounting. And if you think of it as a venture, this can be a way for you to start digging in there without having all the judgment stuff. Or worrying about what happens. Because this is another thing. If you guys start off with this account that you're sharing together or doing the authorized user thing and things don't go perfectly the first time, it can seem like a sign that the relationship is doomed. But no, everything requires practice.
Everything. And everything, honestly, especially if you've never done it before, I want you to think of it as an experiment. It's all a let's see what happens, or one of Dialect's favorite rhymes.
What was it?
Guess and assess.
Oh, yeah, guess and assess.
That's all y'all are doing at the beginning. You're guessing and assessing. You're saying, oh, we think this might work out. And then after a while, you're like, did it work out?
Well, because the thing is, when things don't work or when things aren't working as well as you expect, you're going to go back into the patterns and the habits that you already know.
Yeah, straight up. That's just what's going to happen. Habits are as sticky as hell, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, habits are the ways that we build our life.
Yeah.
So you have to remember that these are building blocks that you're growing on, and you're going to have to build new blocks if you're trying to change the habits that you have.
Yes.
Again, while creating a new venture, it's like on some behavioral science stuff. You know how you will go into a room? It'll be here, like partner stuff. And be like, hey, can you go get me a thing? And I'll go into the kitchen and forget. But because there's a science thing about when you go into rooms, when you change your state, then you're changed where your mind is at. And it's the same thing. You're changing your state and creating this on purpose rather than just forgetting where the spatula is.
I love it. That happens sometimes too, though. So one misconception that I want to clear up is, I get this question a lot. Do your credit scores merge when you get married? And the answer is no. So your credit score and your partner's credit score don't affect each other unless you have a joint account. So if you have a joint account, because this is another, I trust my partner and I feel like that they're going to be equally as responsible as I am, is if you have a joint account and someone ends up defaulting on paying that account off, then you're still responsible for paying that debt.
Well, but to be specific, that default on your joint account is the one area in which your credit scores intersect.
Right.
That's not going to mess with all the other stuff.
Your credit scores don't merge. They don't become an average credit score.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that mortgage companies often take an average credit score. They look at both of your scores and take the average to figure out if they're going to issue you a mortgage. So that's when your partner and your credit score really comes into play.
I mean, I'm sure that's where this misconception came from.
Exactly. But your credit scores don't merge at all.
Yeah.
They still are two separate things. You're still able to do two different things with your credit scores however you want to.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like, with the whole averaging thing, if you've got an 850 credit score and your partner has a 650, they're not going to be like, oh, that's like 750, right? I feel like that's not the case, so don't expect the average to work out.
Some mortgage companies take the lowest credit score.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to bring up, is that a lot of places just take the lowest credit score.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even average it. So it really depends on what the bank decides, as we've seen with all these loans now. But anyway, that's a next week episode.
Well, no, but on the real with that, when you're talking about a partner, remember that is going to straight up limit your options.
Yeah.
And that's why we
real.
need to talk about this stuff early with time horizons. Because if I know that I need a house in the next 2 years, and I don't talk to my partner about it now, when it's 6 months away,
right?
You can't even be mad at your partner for not having their stuff together in terms of the way that you wanted.
They didn't know. And I will tell you, it does not take that long to rebuild your credit or to build up your credit. It can take less than a year to go from a 500 credit score to a 650, 680 credit score. And then from there, oh, the baby's awake.
Yep, he's going to join us.
He's going to join us, yeah. So it doesn't take that long to actually build up your credit score. And also, if you're able to put your partner as an authorized user, if you're able to open joint accounts together, then you can build up each other's credit score faster than if you were just trying to do it by yourself. And so there's a lot of things and a lot of options that you do have as a couple. You're able to really take advantage of credit and debt in a real way and feel like you have control over it. And I think that's one of the most important things to think about is it's not a, this is my debt, this is their debt. It's a, how can we think about all of this together and really think about how we can strategize as a couple and leverage what each other has already done. Because that's the exciting part about joining this stuff and really having an open conversation about it. Oh, hello. And the baby's here. Hello, little baby. And this is good timing, little baby, because, oh, now the doorbell has rang. Everything is happening, y'all. Everything is happening. Okay, so I want to go to a question, and this is a great question. We are trying to achieve FIRE, which is financially independent, retire early. I know, thank you. He is so cute. Oh my goodness. And he just woke up from a nap, so he's like, what's going on, everybody? What's going on? So we are trying to achieve FIRE, financial independent, retire early. Plan is to collect enough rental income equivalent to my salary. Should I pay off rental or continue investing? Dilemma is if another pandemic or this one stretches out long term, the risk is the mortgage is not being paid. We are grateful that the rentals we have now aren't having any issues. The loan amount left doesn't seem like it's worth refinancing given the small amount. Any thoughts? Oh, I have so many thoughts.
Oh, this is great.
Yes, yeah, this is a great question. So I will say right now that we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, whether you invest or whether you invest and continue investing, or continue investing in the stock market, which I think is what you mean, or work on paying off the rental. The question about what's going to happen to real estate, oh, and we can definitely elaborate on FIRE. The question about what is going to happen with real estate and what's going to happen with the stock market is super up in the air right now. So I think that right now, the advice, non-advice that I can give, because disclaimer, which I should have said at the beginning, please do not construe anything we take as financial advice, but is to stay on the plan that you're on. Whatever the plan is, whether it's to continue to invest or pay off the rental, both of those things are long-term plans. And so there's no reason right now to change anything until we have some semblance of stability. And we don't know what stability looks like. Stability could look like, you know, another recession. Stability could look like jobs bouncing back. Stability could look like huge government intervention. Whatever that looks like, we still don't know what that looks like right now. And so for now, I wouldn't change anything. And I would wait next 3 months, next 6 months, until you feel like that you're in a place where things are stable for you. And then you can decide if it makes sense to actually pay down the rentals or continue investing. The fact that you're working towards FIRE, or financially independent, retiring early, and you're planning to actually keep and continue growing your rental income, it might make more sense for you to consider paying down your rental faster, just so you're at a place where you know that you don't owe that mortgage, and it sounds like it's small enough where it doesn't make sense to refinance it. So you're definitely in a place where you could pay down the rental faster if you wanted to. But if there's no urgency for that, if you're still working, if you still feel like that investing still makes sense for you long term on top of the rentals, I'm not exactly sure what your time horizon is when it comes to when you plan to retire early. But if the time horizon's still a little bit away, then I think it will make sense. I know, he's so cute. I think it will still make sense. He's looking at his daddy right now. I think it still will make sense to continue on whatever plan you're on, at least for the short-term future. So that's how I would think about that.
I want to caveat that real quick, just again to remind folks that although that was pretty specific, this is general finance education. Pam does not know enough about your specific financial situation to give actionable data. Please do more research and or consult a planner like Pam for some one-on-one advice about that.
Yes, double disclaimers, everybody.
Yeah, I just want to look out for those folks.
I love it. All right. And we got We got a couple more questions. We're going to have Dialect put on a song in just a second. Once he's finished washing his hands, because that's all we do. Oh, let me elaborate on FIRE. So Glow Up Gang is asking about FIRE, Financially Independent Retire Early. And it's a movement that is kind of a niche movement in the personal finance world. It's this idea that there's a lot of people who are working on saving at least half their income, if not more, so that they can retire early. And so that means that they're both living on very little expenses and also saving a ton of money so that they can retire early. And retire early means something different to everyone, but for a lot of people in the FIRE movement, that means retiring in their 30s or in their 40s or in their 50s instead of waiting till 65. And I also think we should do a whole episode on this, but the concept of retirement in general is something that has totally changed, I think, in the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah, most definitely.
The idea of staying at one job for your whole life, that's not the case anymore. That's not how things work.
It's not always the case.
Yeah, so we should definitely do another show on the FIRE movement.
Yeah, because there are some people who are like, I want to retire early from the thing that I have and be done with it. And there are other folks who are like, I can continue to work while I'm doing my traveling and doing the things that I love.
Yeah, so what's the next song?
Right, we got a song for you. It's coming out of, I think this one is from Dayton, Ohio. Is this Dayton, Ohio?
Oh, cool.
No, Canton, Ohio. Excuse me, Canton. I'm getting my Ohio cities wrong. But it's an artist named Cons with a song called Love, Hate, Relationships. And,
that's great.
well, it talks about things like the habits, the way that we can fall into cycles, sometimes harmful cycles, that we don't know how to get ourselves out of.
That's so
So
real.
we'll put that on. We'll answer some more questions as we're getting on out of here. Because we do like to play a few songs. I want to talk about the other song that we have as well that we'll, I guess, tack on to the end because we're getting towards the end of today's session.
Yes.
That one is called Long Distance Relationship from an artist named Imperfect. Coming out of Oregon.
So that'll be at the end. And I love, can I ask you an off-topic question about your cool computer cover? Where is it from? Thank you! It's from Amazon. DM me and I'll send you the link. It is awesome.
Sorry, yeah.
I love it.
You can probably find it at places other than Amazon, but
Yes, this one is from Amazon.
they own everything.
They do. So I want to answer some more questions. I got a question. So I finally got my stimulus check in the mail, but got the $1,200 and thought I'd get more money for my kid. She was claimed on my taxes. So this is something that has come up. And the tricky part is, even if your child was claimed as a dependent, if they are over 18, you do not get the additional $500, unfortunately. So if they're over 18 and they're going to college students are not eligible for the $500 additional stimulus check, which totally sucks. I know. I don't know why they made that rule. It's not like college students don't need money, but you don't get the extra $500 if your child is in college right now, even if you claim them as a dependent. And then I have another question. Can you guys recommend any good books and reading material about financial success that are politically informed? Yes, we can.
So this is complicated because there really aren't necessarily exactly what you're asking for. Someone that talks about personal success while also talking about the systemic issues. We found a bit of a piecemeal where we found a lot of great books that talk about systemic issues and then a lot of books that talk about how to achieve success. And I think that looking at them in tandem is really going to be helpful.
Yes, so we recommend Devin Fergus, Land of the Fee, where he talks about how fees are basically killing our bank accounts and killing middle America. The prevalence of fees, bank fees, ATM fees, credit card fees, merchant fees, all of this stuff are little ways that the financial industry is just taking money from us.
He's actually got a great book series that takes chronologically the history of these types of issues.
Yeah.
He's been on the Race and Wealth podcast. That was the precursor to the Reach to the Choir, so you can also hear him talk too. He's great.
Yes, and then Mirza Barada on The Color of Money, Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap is another great one in terms of financial success and systems. And then Bob Friedman, A Few $1,000s, where he has basically a plan for giving Americans a few $1,000s. And we're seeing now, I think, with the PPP loans, with the stimulus checks, with expanded unemployment, that a lot of people are actually benefiting financially from government aid, ultimately, and the EIDL loans and things like that. And so I think that there is some merit to pausing student loan debt, to giving businesses additional money to give them a cushion. And I know this was part of an emergency act because of the coronavirus, but we are seeing people being able to keep their businesses afloat because of government intervention. And then the final book that we recommend is Tom Shapiro, Toxic Inequality. Tom Shapiro is the original racial wealth divide, talking about it in the 90s when nobody was talking about it. And he was
not the original.
Not the original.
I
shouldn't say original.
Hey, Dr. King and them was talking about Panther was talking about in the '60s, but he started doing it in the '90s.
He started doing it in the 90s.
Which is a long time ago now because we're all old.
Because we're all old. It's true. It's true. And then I see one more question here. What's your opinion on moving 401ks to cash versus keeping them in stock?
Yes,
that's a great
thank
question.
you for asking that because that's coming up a lot right now.
Further disclaimer, again, I'm not giving investment advice, but in general, what we are telling our clients to do is to not change anything. Going back to the fire question about paying down the rental versus continuing to invest, do not change your investment plan. Right now is not the time to change anything. You have an investment plan for a reason, because when the markets are volatile and things are going up and down, your emotions are going to get in the way. Period. That's just what's going to happen, and that's why you created an investment plan when you were in a place where you weren't emotional about it. So now is the time to stay the course. And if you're in a place where you have 10, 20, 30 years before you have to actually access that 401k money, then you have the time to ride this out. And so for now, we recommend keeping your investment plan what it is, and don't make any changes until we know what the new stability is.
Well, it's like the whole thing about, make your grocery list after you've had a meal and not when you're hungry. But really, I don't want to say that your emotions are getting in the way, because sometimes our emotions are leading us, and that's okay. If your emotions and your feelings are like, I feel like we need to change, then that's something that we need to address, and that's okay too.
Totally. And yes, you can babysit our baby after quarantine, Brooklyn Plants.
Yes.
I know, right? He would love that. He would love that. All right, everybody. So it's just about time. Instagram is going to kick us off in a little bit. But thank you so much for tuning in. We are also going to be putting this on IGTV and also on our podcast, Brunch and Budget. And
please continue asking questions about this topic, about other financial topics. If you continue to ask a torrent of questions, then that will influence the episodes that we're doing. We're doing this live at 2 p.m. Eastern on Fridays here on Instagram.
Oh, and next week, let me give you a preview. We're going to be talking about PPP loan forgiveness and unemployment for freelancers. So ask all of your questions about that. We already have some questions in the hopper.
Oh, yeah, and one last thing I want to say about whether you should have your 401k and all that stuff and your worries about leaving it there. And it's well, what if I leave it there and then everything falls apart and the stock market goes down and it's revolution? Well, then you ain't got no worried about it, then, do you?
Yeah, your 401k is the least of your worries,
exactly.
I promise. So check us out on Brunch and Budget. You can search for it anywhere you listen to podcasts. And also, we are doing a cocktails and credit workshop tomorrow with Glow Up Gang. Oh, cocktails and credit, yes.
Well, and before we go, because I said I would shout this out, and I want to shout it out and make sure that I have it all right. There is a great artist named Camille Thomas who's got a show on Zoom. Holler at us for the link to it. It's a one-woman theater show called Can't Take Out a Parent Plus Loan by Camille Thomas, directed by Molly Bennett. It's being put on by Blackboard, their virtual feature, and it's a one-woman show about the racial wealth divide. Super excited about it.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody.
Peace. Oh, crap. Had I saw it, how could we attend?
Oh, wait.
It's okay.
Oh, yes. Oh, we'll send you the link.
Yeah, we'll send the link.
Yes. How can we attend? Love it. Thank you. Bye.